Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have. What's up, everybody? Peter Tragos here. Today we're talking about the interview Amber Heard has decided to make. And it's very interesting when the clients actually start giving interviews. It can be dangerous, especially when the appellate process is still potentially ongoing. So there's a lot to think about when you're preparing your client to actually go on a media tour, if you want to call it that. So when we talk about the client and the defendant that lost going forward, she has to be very careful in what she says. I haven't watched the interview yet, so we're literally going to react to it live. We will see. Let's compare her and Elaine and see, are they both seemingly angry at the judge and the jury and social media? Does she talk about the tale of two trials? Does she stick to the same themes? The mountain of evidence that was suppressed? Let's see, because I'm interested to see how she does. If I was her, I'd go a little bit softer. I wouldn't blame anybody necessarily. I would say, it was really a difficult time. People didn't believe me. They believed Johnny. That's the story of our lives. People have always been believing Johnny. Something like that. That's probably what I would go with. But we'll see how she does. Let me know in the comments as we go how you think she does. And after this video, I'm going to go live and we're going to talk through the other lawsuit involving Johnny Depp. So stick around after this video. The next video will go live. We'll be able to talk and do live question and answer based on this interview. So you'll be able to get your questions answered live if you do stick around for that live video that's going to start later this morning. But if you're watching it later, I wanted to separate it into two videos so you could see the title, know exactly what you're getting. If you don't care about that other lawsuit, you just want to talk about the Amber Heard interview, you're going to get that here. If you do care about that other lawsuit, stick around, or if you just want to get your questions answered. But for now, let's get into that interview.
The jury looked at the evidence you presented.
I guess Rachel must have started watching this one.
All
right,
here we go. I don't care what one thinks about me, or what judgments you want to make about what happened in the privacy of my own home and my marriage behind closed doors. I don't presume the average person should know those things, and so I don't take it personally. But even somebody who is sure.
So that's interesting. So she doesn't think people should know that, which goes along with her theme, and I think is a good point, that she didn't want this to happen. She didn't want all this to come out. Johnny wanted all this to come out. He got what he wanted. So I think that's on brand for her so far.
I'm deserving of all this hate and vitriol. Even if you think that I'm lying, you still couldn't look me in the eye and tell me that you think on social media there's been a fair representation. You cannot tell me that you think that this has been fair.
So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think this has been fair on social media? Fair or unfair with how people are treating Amber Heard? I usually lean to the unfair side and don't think people should have this vitriol and hate and cancel culture and misery. But I absolutely condemn false allegations. So if you think that, I almost feel like the hate and vitriol is unfair, but maybe some jail time would be fair. And I'm sure she would disagree with that. But if you actually file false allegations or a false police report, which I know she didn't necessarily file a police report in this case, but that deserves jail time. Public hate and vitriol and making people feel miserable or depressed or telling them to go do something bad, I never stand for that, and I'm never cool with that. So I do see that she kind of has a point with how much misery she's getting on social media. I don't think is right to any human being. Everybody makes mistakes. But a lot of people feel like she ruined another person's life, so it's fair in response. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and be nice.
Of course, we also touched on what happened in court and what the jury decided. There's no polite way to say it. The jury looked at the evidence you presented. They listened to your testimony, and they did not believe you. They thought you were lying.
It's a great question.
How could, I'll put it this way, how could they make a judgment? How could they not come to that conclusion? They had sat in those seats and heard over 3 weeks of nonstop, relentless testimony from paid employees, and towards the end of the trial, randos, as I say.
Randos. That was funny. The little slip of her normal language, which I think is nice and endearing, actually, randos. But I mean, hey, right now, she agrees with the jury verdict. How could they not come down to that conclusion based on the evidence and testimony they heard? We all agree with that, right? We all agree with that. Now, whether or not we think they were paid to lie, which is what she's intimating, fine. If that's her argument, I actually think it's more plausible than Elaine's argument. How could they not come to that conclusion after all the evidence and things that they heard from these people Johnny basically paid, or she's probably going to say super fans that came out of the woodwork? Very interesting take, in my opinion.
So you don't blame the jury?
I don't blame them. It wasn't, I don't
like
blame
it.
them. I actually understand he's a beloved character.
Wow.
And people feel they know him. He's a fantastic actor.
Their job is to not be dazzled by that. Their job is to look at the facts and the evidence. And they did not believe your testimony.
She's like, yeah, we hear all that. You're not blaming them, but their job was to literally put all that aside and just listen to the facts and the testimony. So let's see. This is a great question.
Or your evidence.
Again, how could they, after listening to 3.5 weeks of testimony about how I was a non-credible person, not to believe a word that came out of my mouth?
We're going to have more of our exclusive interview with Amber Heard first time today, tomorrow and Wednesday morning. It's a wide-ranging sit-down. And then we'll have a conversation on a special Dateline this Friday night, hour-long.
All right. So I think what I've heard is they're releasing it in short clips. So this is kind of the first short clip. And I think Amber Heard did a great job. I mean, again, she doesn't have a lot to work with, but I think I'm kind of picking up that she's thinking paid employees, super fans that came out of the woodwork. And she keeps saying 3.5 weeks. So it sounds like she may also be arguing Johnny got more time than she did, which we all know is not true, because at the end of the day, her team used more of their time than Johnny Depp. So that's not going to work. If she says it's unfair because the plaintiff got to use 3.5 weeks and we only got 2.5 weeks, that's not going to fly, because the reason it took 3.5 weeks was because of all the long cross-examination and time that Amber's lawyers took. So if she's trying to make it seem unfair, like Johnny got more time, we all know, because we listened to the judge tell us the time at the end of each week or each day or whenever the judge did it near the end, we know that Amber Heard's team actually took more time. So while I think this is actually a way better, I know it's only 2 minutes, a way better start than any of Elaine's interviews. She's obviously been prepped more appropriately for this press tour, but I'm liking her vibes better now. It's unfair the way people are treating me. And how could the jury not come to this conclusion after listening to all this testimony evidence? We all, I mean, everybody, the 97% of us that thought Johnny was going to win this case, I'm not saying we're the biggest Johnny Depp fans or anything like that, but we all listened to the evidence, we all listened to the testimony, and we all thought there's no real way they can find for Amber. They have to find for Johnny, and they did, and it seems like she agrees based on the evidence that came out of trial. So now to win an appeal, their only chance to me is to prove that certain evidence absolutely should have come in, and it absolutely would have made the difference. Because everything that happened in the trial, if you look at what Amber Heard said, there's no way they could have decided for anybody but Johnny, who dazzled them with all of these witnesses that came saying I'm not credible. They believed those witnesses. They found me to not be credible. They were dazzled with Johnny. And that's why I lost. A very interesting start to the interview, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments, how she did, whether or not you agree with anything that she said, which I know is going to be difficult for some of you, but let me know. Thanks for being with us. And now let's get to the live video here where we can answer questions if you're sticking around with us and talking about the newest lawsuit against Johnny Depp.